Once upon a time, not too long ago, holding a U.S. passport was like possessing a golden key to the globe. It opened borders, skipped lines, and unlocked destinations many only dreamed of. Americans could explore ancient ruins in Europe, sip coffee in cobblestone plazas, work remotely on tropical beaches, or start new lives abroad with little more than a flight and a smile. It was a symbol of power, privilege, and endless possibility. But fast forward to 2025, and that gilded passport doesn't shine like it used to. The welcome mats are being rolled back, the visa lines are getting longer, and the red tape, thicker than ever. From the bustling capitals of Europe to the scenic coasts of Latin America and the dynamic cities of Asia, the message is becoming clearer and more common. Americans, you're not as welcome as you used to be. And this shift isn't happening because the world suddenly hates America. It's deeper than that. It's about pressure, economic and political. It's about people, locals feeling displaced and unheard. And it's about perception. How Americans are seen not as guests or contributors, but sometimes as invaders, exploiters, or burdens. The truth is, global dynamics are shifting. Countries are tightening their borders not just to protect their cultures, but to preserve their economies and social fabric. And caught in the middle are thousands of American travelers, workers, students, and retirees, confused, frustrated, and in many cases, forced to leave. So buckle up as we take you through the 10 countries that are no longer rolling out the red carpet for U.S. citizens. The reasons may surprise you. And number 10? You honestly won't believe it's even on the list. But before we dive in, like this video, and if you're new here, subscribe for more insightful content like this, and leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," so we can welcome you personally. Let's dive in. Number 1. Canada, the friendly neighbor. No more just a stone's throw across the northern border lies a country that for decades symbolized safe haven, stability, and a slower pace of life for Americans seeking a fresh start. Canada, clean, calm, and culturally familiar, felt like a natural second home. But in 2025, that welcome has grown cold. Visa rejections for Americans have spiked by 19% since 2022, and even those married to Canadian citizens are finding their renewal applications caught in limbo. What changed? Blame it on a boiling housing crisis? Blame it on a strained public health care system, buckling under pandemic aftershocks, and an aging population? But most of all, blame it on the growing public resentment. In cities like Toronto and Vancouver, locals are pointing fingers at an influx of Americans, accusing them of driving up rent, gentrifying communities, and crowding the system. And the numbers back that up. 61% of Canadians now support tighter border control, particularly targeting Americans. Where Americans once moved with ease, they're now met with bureaucratic roadblocks, frosty attitudes, and a rising sense of, "go back home." What was once a smooth cultural crossover now feels more like a quiet expulsion. Number 2. Mexico, the expat paradise. Turning hostile. For years, Mexico has been a magnet for Americans chasing sunshine, cheaper rent, and a slower pace of life. From Baja to Oaxaca, it's been marketed as a kind of affordable America light, with better tacos. But now that paradise is pushing back. With over 1.6 million Americans living in Mexico, locals are feeling the pressure, and they're making their frustrations known. Visa overstays? They now lead to deportations at a 20-year high. Neighborhoods in Mexico City and Guadalajara? Seeing anti-American protests, accusing foreign residents of pricing out the very communities they moved to enjoy. Government policies? Sharpening fast, with Airbnb crackdowns, rent control battles, and even immigration sweeps targeting high expat zones. Where Americans once saw themselves as curious expats or cultural explorers, many Mexicans now see gentrifiers, colonizers, or worse, opportunists exploiting the cost gap while giving little back. In 2025, being American in Mexico means navigating more than just the language barrier. It means facing a rising tide of resistance. Number 3. Germany, bureaucracy, backlash, and the broken dream. For Americans drawn to fairy tale castles, efficient trains, and world-class healthcare, Germany has always been an attractive landing spot. But that dream is now increasingly out of reach. Getting into Germany used to be relatively straightforward, especially for freelancers, digital nomads, or students. But now, it's a bureaucratic gauntlet. To even qualify, Americans must prove German language proficiency, secure approved housing, show local job contracts, and demonstrate significant savings before they can even submit their applications. Why the change? Blame a severe housing shortage and a sharp rise in anti-foreigner sentiment, particularly in Berlin and Hamburg, where American real estate buyers and digital workers are seen as fueling gentrification and displacing locals. Add to that the increasingly cold bureaucracy, cuts to scholarships, and complex residency rules, and the message is clear. If you don't speak German, understand the culture, and come prepared with a long-term plan, you're not welcome here. For many Americans, Germany in 2025 is less a land of opportunity and more a wall of red tape. Number 4. United Kingdom. The special relationship on ice. For decades, the United Kingdom was seen as America's twin across the Atlantic, a shared language, a shared history, and a famously special relationship. But in 2025, that closeness feels more like a polite distance, and sometimes even an eye roll. Since Brexit, the UK has revamped its entire immigration system, and Americans are feeling the chill. Students are hit the hardest. Tuition fees are sky high, often double or triple what locals pay, and scholarships are drying up fast. Skilled workers, facing tighter visa controls, endless paperwork, and new wage thresholds that exclude many job offers. And don't expect London to greet you with open arms either. The cost of living has become unbearable, even for Americans used to steep U.S. rents. From £10 coffees to £2,000 a month shoebox flats, the dream of living in the UK is now reserved for the wealthy or the lucky. Culturally, the British are also cooling toward their American cousins. The novelty of American optimism, accents, and pop culture has worn off. In fact, Americanization has become a political punchline, criticized for diluting British identity and inflating local prices. That famous charm you hoped would help you glide through immigration. In 2025, it'll barely get you a nod. Number 5. Italy. La Dolce Vita is over. Ah, Italy. The dreamscape of wine, ruins, and romance. A place where Americans have long flocked for art, history, and that slow simmer lifestyle known as La Dolce Vita. But for those trying to stay in Italy, not just visit, 2025 brings a sobering reality. Italy has tightened visa restrictions, especially for the elective residence visa, a favorite among American retirees and digital nomads. Now, applicants must jump through more hoops, show more documentation, and endure months of delay, if they're lucky enough to be approved at all. Why? Italy's cities are reaching a breaking point. In Venice, Florence, and Rome, locals are waging a full-blown revolt against over-tourism. Americans, in particular, are being blamed for buying up second homes, turning medieval neighborhoods into Airbnb ghost towns, and pricing out locals who've lived there for generations. Then there's the bureaucracy, famously Italian, endlessly confusing, and rarely translated. Offices close without notice, forms contradict each other, and very few officials speak fluent English. The beauty of Italy is still undeniable. But in 2025, trying to stay there as an American, that's a pasta bowl full of paperwork, resistance, and disillusionment. Number 6. China. From Great Wall to Iron Curtain. The relationship between the US and China has never been easy. But in 2025, it's not just tense, it's borderline hostile. For Americans living or working in China, daily life has become a high-stakes balancing act. Visa denials are increasingly common, even for seasoned professionals. Work permits, often revoked with little warning. Surveillance, unavoidable. From facial recognition on every street corner to restricted internet access, Americans are finding themselves watched, tracked, and walled off. Even casual conversations can feel like walking on political eggshells. The aftermath of China's zero-COVID era still lingers. The strict lockdowns, isolation, and mental health toll have pushed many foreign residents to pack up and leave. Those who remain rely on VPNs just to access basic information or contact loved ones back home. And even that carries risks. Foreign communities are shrinking, friendships are dissolving under pressure, and American presence is increasingly seen as a liability, not a contribution. In 2025, China isn't just difficult for Americans. It's fast becoming impossible. Number 7. Cuba, the refrozen island. Once romanticized by American travelers as a land of vintage cars, cigars, and revolutionary spirit, Cuba was a destination defined by contrast, a curious blend of nostalgia and rebellion. But in 2025, that delicate dance has collapsed. The diplomatic thaw between the US and Cuba has refrozen into icy silence. With embassies scaling back, visa channels are evaporating, and the few that remain are mired in bureaucracy and delay. And even if you do make it in, daily life is brutal. Fuel is scarce. Internet outages are frequent. Supermarket shelves are empty more often than not. For dual citizens and retirees, the Cuban government has begun quietly urging them to leave, citing national strain and limited resources. The vibrant music, crumbling beauty, and soulful people are still there, but so is a quiet desperation. For Americans, Cuba in 2025 isn't just difficult, it's a country actively closing the door. Number 8. Turkey, a bridge. Closing inward. Straddling two continents and steeped in ancient wonder, Turkey has long been a crossroads of culture, history, and hospitality. But for Americans living there today, that bridge is becoming a blockade. In 2025, nationalism is rising, fueled by regional tensions and an increasingly authoritarian grip on power. American residents report being watched, questioned, and sometimes denied basic residency renewals without reason. Media is tightly controlled. Political discourse is sensitive, and surveillance is now part of everyday life. Even in cosmopolitan centers like Istanbul or Izmir, whispers of unease ripple beneath the surface. Locals may still smile, and the coffee may still pour, but the political climate has changed. For Americans, living in Turkey now comes with risk, not just red tape. You're welcome, until you're not. Number 9. Venezuela. From riches to ruin. There was a time when Venezuela was South America's shining star, flush with oil wealth, booming cities, and the promise of progress. But in 2025, that memory is barely recognizable. Hyperinflation has ravaged the economy. Blackouts are a daily reality. Food is rationed, medicine scarce, and crime a constant shadow. For Americans, the danger is not just economic, it's personal. Visa applications are routinely denied. Movement is monitored. Safety is never guaranteed. Those who remain, they're not sipping cocktails on the beach. They're aid workers, diplomats, or family members holding on out of necessity, not choice. To be an American in Venezuela today is to live under constant strain. This is no longer an expat lifestyle. It's survival. Number 10. North Korea. The ultimate lockout. And finally, North Korea. You probably guessed it would be on this list, but even in 2025, the sheer level of inaccessibility is staggering. For Americans, entry is virtually impossible. And for the rare few who do make it in, typically under humanitarian or diplomatic missions, surveillance is total. You're escorted, monitored, and watched 24/7. There is no privacy, no autonomy, and at times, no way out. One wrong word, one misstep, and you risk detention, interrogation, or worse. If there is one country that symbolizes the global retreat from the American passport, it's this one. A place where freedom doesn't just end, it never began. Let's be clear, this isn't some sudden wave of anti-American hate. It's not just politics, it's not just headlines. What we're witnessing is a deeper, more complex global shift, one where nations are prioritizing self-preservation over open borders, and individual identity is being weighed against national interest. Here's what's really driving the change. From soaring rent prices in Toronto to job scarcity in Berlin, countries are tightening their belts. Foreigners, especially those with financial mobility, are increasingly seen as part of the problem, not the solution. Americans, often assumed to have privilege and purchasing power, are caught in the crossfire. In neighborhoods once praised for their charm, locals are pushing back. Gentrification, short-term rentals, and cultural clashing have painted Americans not as curious visitors, but as displacers, reshaping cities in ways that leave native residents behind. From China to Cuba, from Turkey to the UK, shifting alliances, nationalism, and diplomatic tension have made being American a political identity, not just a passport. And in some places, that identity now comes with suspicion, surveillance, or outright rejection. Yes, the U.S. passport still opens doors, but increasingly, it comes with caveats, clauses, and consequences. Fewer countries, more paperwork, less leniency, and that long-held assumption that being American means being welcome, that's no longer a given. In 2025, being a global citizen means more humility, more understanding, and often, a solid plan. So what do you think? Are these changes justified responses to real pressures, or are Americans being unfairly singled out on the world stage? Have you faced any challenges living or traveling abroad? Do you agree with the policies, or do you see them as overreactions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a real conversation going. And if you found this video insightful, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the shifting realities of our world. Because in 2025, the map may look the same, but the rules of the road are changing fast. And if you're an American abroad, it might just be time to read the fine print.